Hello and welcome to my channel. Today's video is on how I created this pillow block for a 608ZZ bearing. In the video I'm going to show you how I created this top piece, which is done using the additive revolve up here and a sketch profile. I'm going to show you how I did this sketch profile and then how I revolved it. I'll quickly go through how I did the rest of it, but I won't involve the sketches on that. I will show you how I did the profile for the bottom piece and then how I removed the, this is called a groove, and that's this tool here. It's basically a subtractive revolve. And these are a great tool in being able to do a more complex but simple to create object. The other pieces of this, the screw, is from the fasteners workbench, so I highly recommend you install that if it doesn't come with your installation. The bolt is also from that. Makes it very easy to understand what's happening in your model and to basically test out. So like you can put this in and spin around and see, hey, is my hole the right size or the size that I want? The other component, or this the 608ZZ bearing, is from the macro parts library, which you can get through the add-on manager as well. You have to, when you get that, you have to actually execute it with the macro dialog, but you could add it to your toolbar later if you wanted to. So let's get started with a new document, and we'll start by understanding how to draw this profile sketch right here. So here I've created a new document, and I've already added the bearing from the parts library macro, and we're going to start out by adding a body. Make sure you have the pillow block or your main document selected and not the shape, otherwise it's going to add the shape as the base object. So I'm going to create a body, and then we're going to create a sketch. Now I want the sketch to wrap, basically it's going to rotate around this face, so I want to create it in the XY plane, or you select there, and then you see that rotates us to the top view of the drawing. Let's make this a little bit smaller. So to start out with, to do this, I'm just going to use the polyline tool and create a general outline of my shape. So let's do that. So you select the polyline tool, and I'm just going to make an approximation. I'm going to be sure to make sure that it does as many of the horizontal and vertical constraints as possible, because they will get used. Some of them will get deleted with other constraints that we add, but many of them will remain, and it's going to help keep our profile square and straight. So you'll notice that I did use coincidences on that last one. We need a complete drawing, or it needs to be connected all the way around in order to do a profile. And let's hit that one that I missed. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add fillets, and it's important to add them at this step, because if you put measurements first, the fillet breaks the measurement. So let's do that. So to add our fillets, we just use the fillet tool, and we just click on each one of the points that we want to fillet. FreeCAD makes some computation and decides on the radius for the current line setting without moving the lines at all. And what the fillet tool is doing is adding a tangent sheet constraint with what's called an endpoint coincident constraint, but it's internal, so you don't see it anywhere. So the next thing I want to do is I want to make all of these radiuses the same. So to make all the radiuses the same, I'm going to zoom up quite a bit. We're going to select them all, and then we'll just use the radius constraint. The radius constraint, when you have them all selected, it automatically asks you if you want them to be equal. We're going to say yes, and then it adds them all, and we're going to make a 0.5 millimeter radius for this drawing. So the next thing we need to do is start fixing things a little bit. Let's re-add this, because some FreeCAD does remove constraints that get in the way, and I have it set to not auto remove, but it still seems to remove some. So with that set, the next thing we want to do is add some symmetry constraints to get this thing centered around the bearing, which is already centered. So basically I'm going to add symmetry constraints at certain points in the drawing, and this will cause some of the horizontal and vertical constraints to be not needed. So FreeCAD will tell you what they are. You can just click it, it highlights it, and then you delete it. I'm going to add one here as well. So I'm just going to go through and remove all the constraints that it doesn't like. I'm going to add one here, and then we're going to add one more to the bottom. So the thing to remember about symmetry constraints, that is, at least for now, is they need to be vertical or horizontal. I think maybe just, but you can't do like just 3 points. It's got to be a line and 2 dots. It's not as flexible as I would like it to be, but it's still pretty awesome. So that's the last one. Let's get rid of the redundancy there. And so now you have a pretty solid model that, keeps its shape as we adjust it. But the next thing we want to do is we want to make all of these lines equal so it matches on either side. So let's go around and install some or add some equality constraints. Now you could simply just do one side of this sketch and then mirror it. But for the sake of obviousness, I want to do it like this way so you don't have to think it through too much. So again, just like the mirror constraints, these equality constraints. I don't want to get rid of that one, so let's hit Control Z. I want to keep all my radiuses the same. So setting equality on these, I think, is going to infer equality there. Yeah. So we don't need that one. Let's see which other ones we need. I think. Yeah, so we don't need an equality here because this mirror constraint stays horizontal. So these are going to be inferred to be the same. So getting a feel for all your equalities and stuff is important. Yeah, so these symmetry constraints takes care of. So I think, do I need one there? Yeah, these two symmetry constraints create equality between these two. So that's all we need. Not too many, I think. Let's just try to play around to make sure I got them all. Yeah. So now if you could do equality here and here and here and get the same result as the symmetry, but I like symmetry. So now let's add some measurements to get this thing finalized. So the first one I'm going to add is the width. The width of the bearing is 7 millimeters, so I'm going to add it just a smidge bigger. I'm going to make it 7.25 because I want it to be snug in that regard. And then we need to add the radius that this is going to rotate around. So when you do the revolve, it's going to rotate around the object's one of the object axis or construction line. So to make that a little more obvious, let's pick this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this dot right here in the center line, and so that's going to set the radius that's going to capture this bearing. So now let's select the radius tool here. The distance tool, because we're setting a radius. So I know that my bearing to be 22 millimeters, so I'm going to set it to 11.25. So that'll create a 22.5 radius fitting there, and that'll be good for capturing it. And you see that it sets the distance, and we're all good to go there. So now all we've got to do is figure out how thick we want it. So let's just ballpark this a little bit. So we'll set one dimension here, and I think let's just do 3. That wouldn't be very robust, but and we need to set this capture. Let's make it 4. That looks really thin. So this is something you can pick to your liking. If you want it to be very robust, then you make it thicker. If you don't care, you make it thinner. This is sort of more decoration than anything. You notice I'm using the distance constraint because these aren't vertical or horizontal to each other. And I want to do the distance constraint to this. I think that'll get me there. So from a dot to a line, it's going to create a vertical or horizontal constraint from the dot to the line. So let's make this, let's just make it 1.5. So I want that to be fairly small. And then the final thing to set is this guy right here, and I think that'll get us constrained enough. Let's make that 1.5 as well. So we have 2 degrees of freedom, and the way to find the degrees of freedom, if you click it, it'll show you where you're not set. But we know this is an equality constraint. Let's just see if we can figure out what's going on. So what it might be is that this, let's delete that for a second. This might not be connected. Nope, it is. So that's okay. Let's put that back. And where's the other one? This is there. So what it might be is, so it's showing you this, that it's the circle, and it thinks it's not fully constrained, but I think that it's an equality radius there, so I don't know why it thinks it's not constrained. Not sure, but we'll find out. Oh, so the last thing is that let's set the overall width, and we'll set that to just a round number. And then we're done with this sketch, and then I'll show you how to revolve it. So let's set that to, well, let's just set it to 11. That looks reasonable. Okay, so we're going to close the sketch, and you see it's right there. Now we're going to revolve the sketch. And for some reason, and this is an important thing to remember about FreeCAD, when something goes wrong, it doesn't show you the sketch. So I'm going to guess what's wrong is that it's not a fully constrained or intersects the sketch. Oh, because it picked, we want to do the x-axis, so we're going to do x right there. So it didn't select the axis nicely for me is all. So that's our base shape, and then we'll start working on building up the fasteners. So to build up the fasteners, I'm just going to copy in sketches, and I'll show you the sketch, and then I'll show you where I copy it. So the first one's going to be this pad, so it's this shape right here. So I'm going to copy that sketch, and I'm going to say no to that, and I'm going to paste it into this. I'm going to paste it and then put it in this body. And you see the sketch isn't oriented correctly, so I'm going to reorient that, but I don't want to show you that in this video because what you'll want to do is just select the face and create the sketch. So I'm going to orient this, and then I'll show you how I pad that sketch. So I've added and oriented this sketch, so now the next step is to just pad it. And we're going to use the default of 10 millimeters because that works for us. I have to hit reverse because my sketch is oriented the wrong way. And click OK, and that's our basis for where the sleeve for the bolt will go. So we're going to mirror this, and then we'll do the bolt hole. More recently, I've learned that when you add a part, unless you're doing, you could draw this sketch so it pads both sides, but FreeCAD tends to want you to just do one feature at a time, and this would be technically two. So what I'm going to do is, and also it's less work. I just have to draw this one sketch instead of basically twice, and that can add up. So what I'm going to do is, instead of drawing it twice, I'm going to just use the mirror function. And to keep your sketch sort of clean and even, you want to do the mirrors to each feature as you go. It gets really messy if you don't, and it's hard to understand, and I think FreeCAD doesn't like it, but I'm not sure. So it automatically picked up the right plane and added a mirror. So half the work. Great. So now let's add the hole for the sketch hole. So the sketch we want to add is right here. So I'm just going to copy that, and I'll browse it so you can see what you need to do. And we're just going to be adding it to the base plane. So you see that it's picking up the positioning from the other one. So I'm going to reset that positioning, and then I'll show you the sketch. So here's the sketch in approximate position. We're going to open it up, and we're going to finalize the position, and that always happens to me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to anchor it using the external geometry tool to this radius here. So we're just going to click on these two together. Now this can cause problems when you're making models if you're changing the model a lot. In other words, if this face changes, you're going to have problems. But I'm not going to be changing this model much, so I'm going to use it. So the next thing I want to do is I want to create a pocket with this. So we'll select the pocket tool, and it's probably reversed. Always seem to be reversed. And in this case, we just want to go all the way through. So we're going to select through all and select OK. And then just like in the other one, we're going to mirror this. Now I selected a 2.5 radius for this because I'm using 5 M5 bolts. You can change it to your liking. So right now it's to the vertical axis. I'm going to see if I can select this and make it change. So base XY, and we're good to go. And so the next thing, this is done. So the next thing we're going to do is the base of the model. So the next piece we want to create is the lower block, and we're going to start with this sketch here because that's going to be the basis of our whole item. So let's go over here and create a new body. I want to select the document and create a body, and then we're going to add a sketch. And the sketch is going to be on the YZ plane in this case because we're going to pad it out to be equal with this. So let's click OK, and let's get started making our sketch. So this is actually a very basic sketch, but I wanted to show you something like this. So we're going to just do all the lines. So let's use the polyline tool because it's a little less clicking, and I'll get it. So I'm going to start with this line here. So that's going to be the top of the where you're mounting flange. And then that's the bottom of the mounting flange. We'll go all the way over to the base and click there. And then the final piece is going to be a circle, a quarter of an arc, 90 degrees of arc right here. So now we'll start constraining these so that this thing doesn't move around. So at this point, we need to just add some constraints to set the sizes and position of this. And to do that, I'm going to first hide these objects. And let's start setting this up. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move some of these so they're sitting on the axes. Sometimes it just doesn't select. And I liked that FreeCAD will leave the tool in place, but it doesn't always seem to want to do it. And there we go. So that's the beginning constraint. Now let's add some measurements. So I'm going to set this to 40. And these are arbitrary right now. You can set these to to whatever you need. I'm going to set this to 14. This just kind of looked right to me, so I went with it. I imagine you want thicker for greater strength and thinner for less important things. So you can see as I start to set all the settings or dimensions, everything just starts to snap into place, and you may not need constraints that you think you do. So this is going to end up being 7.5 because that's the resultant outer rim, and you can see I'm fully constrained at this point. The one I didn't show you was let me do that one because I kind of put that in between recording there. See if I can select it. This is a little bit of a tricky one. So right now this is not constrained. You can see it can get wonky there. So what I do is I select those two dots and a vertical constraint between them, and then you're good to go. So the next thing we want to do is pad this and then mirror it. So let's do that next. So to pad this, we just select the sketch and hit the pad. And we want it symmetric to the plane because we're doing everything centered. And if I remember correctly from the sketch, we're looking at the width from here to here. I think that was 11. And yeah, so in this case we'll be adding the fillet later on. So we need to mirror this so we have both sides of it. So hit mirror, and FreeCAD intelligently picked it for us. And then next we're going to add the shoulders to receive the bolts. So we'll go over and get that sketch and copy it in. So at this point I can just copy the sketch from here. So you see I have it selected, and that's the one we want. So I'm going to press C. I'm going to say no, and with my body picked, I'm going to select V. Now it's not in the body yet, as you can see, so you have to you can either drag it to the body or you can do move to another body. So it's in the wrong, no, it's in the right position, so we're good to go. So with this body active, we're going to pad it, and it was nice and padded down for us, so that's good. And we can just click OK, and that's done. Let's hide the upper one so we can see what we're doing. And now we want to mirror this pad as well. We'll just keep doing that as we go. And that's done. Now let's copy the pocket from up above. That's the hole. Let's see if we can see that better. So that's this hole right here. Let's hide these so we can see which one we're working on. So that's that one right there. So let's copy that. I don't want dependencies. Let's bring our body back, and we'll just hit hit paste, Control V, and then I'm going to drag it into the body. So you can't see it because it's going to be right in here. We'll just pocket it. We'll pick through all, and we should be good to go. There it is. Okay. Click OK, and then let's mirror that one. This one didn't figure it out, so let's tell them. There she is. So there's our through holes, and the next thing we're going to add is an octagonal cutout here to receive either the head of a bolt or a nut. So it's a captured nut or captured bolt. So let's do that next. So for this sketch, I'm going to map it to the bottom of this, and sometimes you'll regret this because it can throw things off. But what I found is as you get used to it, it tends to be not too difficult to fix those things. So we're going to use the regular polygon shape, and I'm going to center it there. We'll do that. And I'm going to click one edge and make it horizontal. And I'm going to make the radius is going to be 5.785. So that allows this bolt to be to capture the M5 bolt nut. So the next thing I want to do is I want to center it to this. So I'm going to pick as an external tool here. And I use these even though they cause problems, because I just assume that eventually the FreeCAD developers are going to fix it. So this is one thing that you want to keep in mind with sketches. You just notice that this didn't move, but it seems like it applied. Until you remove the problems, it won't apply. So I selected the sketch. If you click it, you see it selected the problem one, and I'm going to delete that, and then it moved. We're going to say no. I don't know what that was. Okay, so let's close, and oh, so I hit delete or something, and it tried to delete something from here. Glad it didn't. So now let's pocket that, and I'm seeing that this whole thing is going to want to be a little thicker, because that is a very thin wall. It might be okay. So I'll leave it, and that'll be up to you to change if you want. So let's pocket this. I'm just going to leave it at 5 millimeters, and that's a little bit more than the standard nut, so you have room to play a little bit. And then let's mirror that. And it got it right, so hooray. So 2 more things left. We want a mounting hole, and we want to do this, the groove. I'm saving the groove for last, because I think that's the most likely thing to change. And that way, if you change that, it doesn't mess up these other things. So let's pocket this hole here. And I'm just going to copy that sketch in, so we're not going to spend time doing that one. So here I've copied the sketch in, and we're going to pad that. So it's simply just a circle. Its dimensions are, in this case, 2.5. So I make it a snug fit for the M5, so that if you're doing a lightweight application, you can just thread it right through. And then we want to pocket. And in this case, it doesn't make it through, so let's do through all. And then let's mirror that one. So I'm using extensive use of mirrors just to get a really good sense of how that can save you a lot of time over the course of it. So now let's do the revolve, and then we'll add our chamfers and fillets. So the final sketch to make the groove is derived from the revolve sketch. Let me show you that real quick. So that's in the green right there. And you can see it's basically just this shape here with a block in the center to take out the rest of the material. So let's open that sketch so you can see what I did there. I'm not going to go step by step on that, but let me show you. So basically it's just, the area for the bearing. Then the inverse of these shoulders, and then the inverse of that fillet. So you can take all the measurements from that sketch there. What I actually did was I copied this sketch, I deleted this stuff here and left the center, and then drew some lines. I used the measurements from the sketch, they're the same, so it's 11.25, 7.25, the width is the same, and the only thing that's different is I need one more measurement to make this sketch fully constrained, and that's basically derived from, the distance this radius travels, plus this distance. So that's the sketch. And then to do the revolve, or to do the groove, let me show you that. So let me delete the groove I did in between shots here, and then we'll do it. So with the sketch complete, I'm going to run the groove tool. So it's the groove, which is basically a subtractive revolve. And what it'll look like, it'll look like it kind of didn't do anything, but that's telling you where it's going to go. We don't need to change anything because we don't care if it removes from empty space. It's not going to do anything. But once we remove, click OK, you'll see the groove is finished. So the only thing left to do is to dress this up with some fillets and whatnot. We did the bottom. Yep, that's good. So I'm going to select these 4 corners, and I'm going to put a fillet on there just to make it look a little prettier. So this isn't really necessary, but I want the radius to kind of match the radius of that. So let's just go to, I think we can go up to 5. So when these lines meet, FreeCAD's going to run into some trouble. And it might not even show you anything. So you see how I hit 1 to 6 and nothing changed? When I click OK, that's going to create an error. So you just have to keep that in mind when you're doing a fillet. So that's that fillet. And I did this one first on purpose, because when I do the fillet for this edge, it'll automatically wrap around because this is a curve. If it was a corner, it won't. So let me show you that fillet there. And this can be pretty tight right there. Oops, not only tight, but it broke it. So let's make it 0.25 and see if it fixes. Yeah, so that's good. That's not going to show up on a print, but I'll just put it in there to make it look pretty for now. So I probably want to make this base a little thicker so I can have an actual fillet. So let's add a ref for this other side. and that's our finished piece. So I hope you enjoyed this. You'll notice that, so if I hadn't done these first, I would have had to click each side, each corner, and each one of these curves to get a fillet only on this surface. Otherwise it would, you know, if I clicked the plane, it would creep up here and stuff like that. So anyway, you know, make sure you subscribe to my channel and click the alarm bell, and check out my Patreon. It's under patreon.com/mathcodeprint. I'm going to be giving some rewards, like a dollar level will be something like access to the models for these. If you're interested, let me know in the comments, or contact me through Patreon, I guess. I'm going to try to make a living out of this. So have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video.